Welcome to the Extreme Cinema Podcast. I'm Alexander Sternberg, and with me as ever is the beautiful Dom Loach. How you been, Dom?
I'm good, thank you very much, Stenny. I'm looking forward to talking about some horrific stuff today.
Horrific stuff. I ended up watching Godzilla versus Megalon from 1973 after this last night because I was like, I need a break. Let me watch some Japanese men in costumes hit each other.
Yeah, I think this is, well, we should probably say today is Last House on the Left. And I
Last
think
House
it
on
is
the Left.
so far the most horrifying thing we've covered by quite a margin.
I was gonna say the exact same thing, and I think it's really interesting because if you noted it down on paper, it's probably the least horrific, but fuck, it's an effective movie. This is Wes Craven's directorial debut, and it was one of the most shocking, infamous nasties of the time. Coming after very shortly after Straw Dogs came out, and this made Straw Dogs look so tame in
Oh,
comparison.
absolutely. And Straw Dogs is nothing to batter. Straw Dogs can be intense, but this is something else completely. Like watching it again.
I love Straw Dogs, but yeah.
Watching it again, I was so like, oh my god, this is intense, isn't it? I was glad my housemate wasn't in while
It's
I was watching it.
it's such a fucking downer as well. Like, I have written about this film academically, and I've got so much notes and stuff to talk about. But I've seen this film fucking 7 or 8 times in a very short period of time because I wrote at length about it and its historical importance. And I was just dreading watching it again, yesterday, because I was just like, it's just gonna bum me out, and it really just does.
Yeah, exactly. I watched it 2 days ago, I think now, just before I went to work. And I was like, I didn't know how to explain to people that I was in a bad mood because I watched a movie that I wanted to watch, but it was just horrifying.
Uh, let's get into it, I guess. What do we think of it? What do we think in terms of its quality of filmmaking, I guess?
I think it's a great film. Like, obviously disturbing and messed up in every sense of everything, but I think it's a fantastic film. Wes Craven is amazing. We all know he's an incredible director. And I think it does push a lot of boundaries, but it does it well. What do you think?
I agree sort of somewhat because I think it's a great film. I think it's an iconic film, and I think there's a lot of substance in it. But it's like Wes Craven going through film school essentially. Like, I love Wes Craven stuff, but this is, in terms of directing, it's quite poor. It's a tonal mess, but
Oh yeah.
yet it's still completely engaging. Sort of the poor directing and the rather poor editing, it it doesn't really affect your viewing experience that much because there really is a sense that you're watching some scummy, very brutally realistic, dirty movie. It's very evocative and effective.
Yeah, that's what the thing I was gonna say. Like, I think that poor directing and editing does kind of, you kind of forget about it because of how visceral and in your face this film is and how effective a lot of it is. I think Wes Craven just wanted to be effective and he definitely pulled that off.
Oh God, yeah, absolutely, and the realism as well. I mean, initially this was intended to be a hardcore film, and God knows who the hell would have watched that. um, and then they just decided to cut the hardcore sex out very late into production, and it's got that sense of there is a camera person. Is there even a fucking microphone? It sounds horrendous. So, there's just few people and they're going into some woods somewhere and just filming this horrible stuff. And there's not a whole lot of special effects. It's just quite good acting, especially from David Hess, who is fucking
Yes,
iconic.
yes.
Like the blow your brains out, blow your brains out. That is horror legendary, that bit.
I think it's like you said, you can't even tell if there's a microphone, and you could tell it's that early nasty experience that kind of makes the film almost what it is. Like,
It's hyper low budget filmmaking as well from back when that was very inaccessible.
yes, exactly, yes. And then you say on top of that, a lot of the performances are amazing. So it almost feels like this you're watching a real horrifying thing. And obviously it's not like we talked last time where Megan is missing stuff. It with the
Which
people
is the
thinking
exact
it's
opposite,
real.
which is the performances are so bad it takes you out of anything horrific.
Exactly. That's what I was gonna say, yeah, where it's so opposite of this brings you in, even though you can tell it's so badly done at points. The acting and the performances and the things that they do in it just affect you so badly.
The bit where they're murdering her after the rape, where they're stabbing her and blood spilling out, that's just it's a horrendous shot. Like that still image is like such a famous clickbait, thumbnail for like most horrific films ever, because that is a horrible image. I mean, it's like a fucking half an hour of the movie, the rape and murder, and it's horrendous.
It is.
But I guess
It's very long. Like that whole
punishing.
punishingly long. Yeah.
But I guess getting into a bit more of the aspects that don't quite work. I mean, yeah, the directing, it's really quite bad. The camera doesn't really know what to film. The shots don't look composed in the slightest, which kind of, like I said, adds to how horrific it looks and how dirty it looks. But it is very noticeable that no one really knows where they're meant to be. The editing is garbage, like actual
Yes.
garbage at points. And the biggest problem with the film is the tone. Like, I guess all the like jingles are meant there ironically, but it doesn't work. And the Keystone Cops being in it is so baffling. It's like one of those baffling movie decisions.
That is genuinely horrible. Them as some kind of comic relief thing. Like it
I
is.
guess the
I think that's the most broken bit about it, because I could excuse directing in tone. No, sorry, directing and editing, and like almost pass them off, but the tone is genuinely like all over the place, like you said.
it's yeah, in like a very weird way. I guess the villains of the film, uh, it's sort of a take. It's kind of very much post Manson America. That's Charles Manson, uh, not the other one.
Okay.
Sort of, and it's clearly a take on that like kind of murder family ish. It's just when they're in the car and you've got this like jingle about them playing, you're like, what is going on?
Oh yeah, it's obviously such a Manson, Texas Chainsaw kind of thing going on, where that like deadly family type thing that happened in so many of these films after the Manson murders. Like
It's so
they became like the trope for a while, basically, didn't they? Like,
they did, and Natural Born Killers is which we will talk about one day on the show, is like a brilliant send up of that trope.
yeah, yeah.
It's not just post Manson though. This is so post America is losing the Vietnam War and everyone is aware of it. Post Kent State, post Nixon, or Nixonian America. It's so rooted in the fucking absolute cynicism of that time. Like, this film, I mean, it wouldn't have come sort of 5, 6, 7 years earlier, because it's very much rooted in the kind of new Hollywood filmmaking, even though this is not, it's like an indie grindhouse film. But like, it's so, this film, if it was like 10 years older than it was, it wouldn't have made any sense, but it makes so much sense coming out in 1973.
Oh yeah, definitely. And it's like the most nihilistic thing I've ever seen in my
It's
life.
it's completely, that's why like attacking the soundtrack earlier, but the actual theme of The Road Leads to Nowhere is so good and makes complete sense. And why that's not over the end credits of the film, why it's that stupid jingle, remains so confusing. But it's complete nihilism. Well, this is a kind of soft remake of Ingmar Bergman's The Virgin Spring.
Yes.
Which
yeah.
is also a rape revenge film, and also the family are Christian in there, etc. And it is taking that very dark Scandinavian approach of everything is terrible.
Yes, yeah, definitely. It is that, yeah. That Scandinavian look at the world where it's this is horrible and like everything is terrible and there's not much good happening.
And that the aesthetics, as we were saying earlier, like the main reason I think that's so punchy and horrendous and it's just so real is that it was really inspired by news footage in particular of the Vietnam War happening. So they're transposing the violence that everyone was seeing nightly on the news in, the Vietnamese jungle and putting that in a kind of all-American woodland setting.
Yeah, it's literally taken like that historical context and showing it into an American point of view.
Completely. And there are two in particular images that are really striking on this. Well, one actually before that is the symbolism, which this film has actual symbolism in of the peace necklace.
Yeah, the peace symbol.
Pretty much, hard coding that character as sort of being representative of like the young radicals and whatnot. But the two bits that are really, you can see what they're doing is, one, there's a shot when the other woman is escaping and running away, and it looks like the very famous Napalm Girl photograph of the Vietnamese child,
Yes, I never even put that together actually, but now you say it. Yes, yeah.
It's that, and when David Hess is about to execute Mary and after the rape, when he holds his hand out with the revolver, that is also the very famous photograph of the execution of the Vietnamese prisoner. Or photograph, there's film of that.
Yes, I know the one, yeah.
And you're trying to really shock the audience. You're trying to essentially kind of put them through a Vietnam War, but at home in America. And that's why this film is so fucking punchy and timely and is so shocking and is actually worth like discussing so much.
That's the thing. I think this is one of those nasties that is worth discussing more than almost anything because of that. What Craven did with equating this to the Vietnam War and putting it in a historical context to be like how fucked up that entire thing was and trying to make people understand.
It's certainly, I mean, Possession has kind of a little political thing going on, even though that's more about a relationship.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is definitely the most hardcore, politically motivated nasty there was, like by a mile.
It's so weird as well because Craven kind of has he ever really done anything else like this? Like
The Hills Have Eyes,
Hills Have Eyes
has a kind of political meaning behind it.
So that was
but after that, I don't think so.
Because he went very horror comedy, didn't he?
Well, Scream, that's I mean, okay, I guess we'll talk about Wes Craven now.
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah, there's the best eulogy I saw of Wes Craven after he died a few years back, which I don't quite agree with, but regardless, is that most directors would kill to have reinvented horror once. Wes Craven did it 4 times, and I think saying New Nightmare reinvented horror is a bit of a push, but he certainly reinvented it 3 times, with Last House on the Left, Nightmare on Elm Street, and then Scream.
Yes, definitely. I mean, as you know, Scream is my favorite horror of all time. I think it's utter
fucking love Screams.
Genius. And then obviously Nightmare on Elm Street's iconic. But this is so just unlike anything, and it's
different.
Insane that it's his first film as well. Like,
No, I can believe this is his first film. This strikes me so hard as a director who is intent on provoking, not making anything that he cares about being kind of acceptable or not, and working within absolutely no money. It strikes me as a first film. It's just the intelligence Wes Craven clearly has, which is so apparent in Scream and Nightmare as well. Nightmare doesn't sometimes get the credit it deserves. It's just so on display here.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, yeah. That's more what I meant when I said it's crazy. It's his first film, just because Wes Craven is so clever at what he does. Like the theme in more than anything else around The Last House is what makes it so iconic and so good.
I guess, yeah, we talk sort of like this early Craven is very politically inclined, and then later he gets more into kind of deconstructing the kind of films he made earlier with Scream and New Nightmare.
Yeah, definitely.
You really get into that. And also, it's not just Wes Craven. I mean, this is Sean Cunningham produced it, who went on to make the Friday 13th film and some other slashers. He's not quite as noteworthy a filmmaker as Wes Craven, but it's just very interesting to see not only where they started, but how well they were accepted. Because in researching this, I found something amazing, which shocked me more than anything in this film, is that Roger Ebert fucking loved this movie.
What?
Roger Ebert, the man who said I Spit on Your Grave is the worst movie ever made, gave this 3.5 out of 4 stars and received many angry correspondence after recommending the film.
That's so weird for Ebert because he hated all of these kind of films, really, didn't he?
I guess this is because he hated slasher films except for Halloween and would keep bringing up how Halloween has artistry, but obviously none of the other ones do. Granted, Halloween has more artistry than pretty much every other slasher film,
Yeah.
but like, I guess this is the Rape Revenge equivalent of that. Because he said it's 4 times better than you'd expect. There's like an air for nuance in the dialogue, and that it's horrific in the correct way. And I agree. I mean, he likes it more than I do, which is fucking insane.
That is crazy, yeah. I'd never seen the Ebert review on this, and I've seen a lot of Ebert reviews. Mainly because
I really wish
when he usually did this type of thing, I just hate the reviews.
I wish when I was researching this for my dissertation, I bothered to look at the Ebert review. And also, Pauline Kael fucking loved it as well. She said it's undoubtedly the best movie ever made in Pittsburgh. It's one of the most gruesome and terrifying films ever made. And this is what she says, which I think is so astute, is that even the flatness of the amateurish acting, the unfunny attempts, well, I don't agree with the acting, the unfunny attempts at campy comedy somehow adds to the horror. And I'm like, it kind of does. The roughness of the film really does make this is what makes the film the most intense thing we've watched so far.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it is. It's just watching it over any of these other ones. It's like it's that irreversible, which we'll talk about at some point as well. It gives me the same feeling as that, just intense.
I was thinking the exact same thing when watching it, that like maybe the only other time I've been this like horrified at what I'm watching was Irreversible.
Yeah, and I think that does come with the context as well of obviously it's horrifying rape, like which doesn't even happen in many um good nasty films. It happens in a lot of shit ones, but it doesn't happen in many good ones. And I think to do that good, it has to be
Have you ever
horrifying.
seen? Well, yeah, this is a good example. Have you ever seen Savage Streets starring Linda Blair?
No, I've not. No.
So it starts out as this pretty fun, like, high school romp. Definitely, like, cheap. Definitely, you can tell it's going to get a bit exploitative. And then out of fucking nowhere, there's this horrible gang rape sequence. And it's like, wow, really ruined all the goodwill you brought with this movie, didn't ya?
Yeah, that's
And it's so, like, it's such, like, an edgelord thing, that film.
that's the kind of thing that I'm saying. Yeah, it's like it's so hard to do this well and mean something by it. So when it is done well and something is like meant by it and it's done because it's not tasteful. You can't really call it tasteful, can you? But
It's, yeah, this is the opposite of
yeah,
taste. If it's
exactly.
with purpose, with purpose.
That's the thing with purpose. Yeah, it does affect you even more than just that like edgy. Now there's a horrifying rape scene kind of thing. Like, it's done with purpose, so it actually really makes you feel like shit. Like,
Oh, absolutely, totally. It's as Cecilia Said, again, I was pulling shit from my dissertation for this. She said she got it to direct form of social commentary. The film. It's just such a blunt and direct film, and it doesn't outstay its welcome. It's 82 minutes. Doesn't need to be any shorter. Doesn't need to be any longer. It's pretty great at what it does.
yeah, I'd definitely go. I obviously agree with that as well. And I think we should probably, now we've talked about the horrifying stuff in it, talk about the censorship that happened with this film then, because oh my god, is there a lot?
Oh, we are such a fucking stupid country. We are. If you haven't worked out by now, we're from the UK because everything we talk about is very UK centric. But like, we're insane. Okay, so 1974. So the film is made 1973 and released in the US. Then 1974 refused outright classification, obviously for its sadism. That's the
Yes,
reason
yeah.
given, right? Then videotapes come in. Last House on the Left released on video, and then it's instantly banned as a video nasty. It's a film that can be prosecuted if you try and sell it. Like, you know,
Uh-huh.
it's heroin. It's treated the same as
Yeah,
like
yeah.
class A fucking drugs. Then this is the bit that really shocked me because yeah, that's obviously it was put again in the year 2000 for classification. Banned again. This film from 1973
That's the
banned.
insane part, yeah.
Some councils were like, "What the fuck?" So it played without BBFC certification, and they had to get permission from each council. So Southampton Council and Leicester Council allowed it to be shown, but that was how the release went in 2000.
Yeah, that's crazy. It's crazy.
It's insane. And then they placed it in 2003 for home release again, and they cut out 16 seconds, and they went to appeal because they were like, hold on, this is getting a lot of critical evaluation as being a really important work. You know, we're going to take it to appeal, and we're going to get Mark Kermode, my favorite film critic,
Yes.
a very big defender of this film and defender of the horror genre, to defend this film. And then they double the cuts after appeal, and it's released in 2003 with 31 seconds taken out.
It's so petty. It's such a petty.
It's absolutely, it's ridiculous. And what do those fucking 31 seconds do? Because arguably the last thing you want to do to this film is make it less horrendous.
Yes, exactly. That's the thing. Cutting originally 16 seconds, then 31. Like, what were they that was worse than the half an hour of horrific rape and torture? Like, obviously, it was part
Well,
of that, but like,
it's some shots. It's some shots from the rape and the forced urination.
yeah, yeah.
Um, you know, abrupt cuts making, but like this is meant to be shocking. There's nothing erotic about the film. And the last thing you'd want to do is make it less horrible to watch. That's going to make the film more damaging and more nasty than it is if it's properly horrendous.
Yeah, exactly. That's what a lot of the censorship in movies fail to understand with a lot of what these movies are trying to portray is when they cut some shit, it actually makes the movie worse for people watching it. Like, people will get, like, not understand what it's trying to say if you cut something.
Exactly. And like, I mean, when we were talking about Cannibal Holocaust a couple of weeks back, we were saying, okay, it's animals, you can't do it. This is consenting actors who are adults making an 18 rated film, because there should be an 18 rating.
Yes.
So, you know, it's adults buying this film, it's adults involved in it. I see fucking nothing in this that should warrant any kind of board going. And it's a horrendous film. We keep going on. It's like horrific. But I see nothing in this that warrants any kind of, you know, government body going, right, we're cutting this out. Especially in the year 2000. Like, come
That's
on.
the thing. We're not talking when we talked about Cannibal Holocaust and stuff. This is the 70s and the 80s. Like, this was 2000 we're talking about where this happened, where much worse, more horrific stuff had come and gone by this point, easily.
And like, this is, you know, it was past uncut in 2008, and I remember when I was looking for a DVD of this, working out which copies were uncut was actually kind of maddening because the runtimes are the exact same on everything. And like, you know, the remake, which I don't think either of us have seen, but like,
No.
the remake was meant to be really horrific. And that had been out, and I believe that's uncut. And you just think, like, it's so petty. It's not petty. It's misguided. It's a very weird conservative thing to be doing to a film from 1973.
Yeah, definitely. And always a big fan of the story of Commode coming in to defend it as well. I just love that he did that. Like,
Well, like at the time, a lot of Wes Craven said that they had to keep restoring prints they got back from cinemas because so many cinemas kept splicing stuff out themselves.
oh wow,
Because it was so horrendous. Just like that's so Cinema Paradiso or something.
that is. I did not know that.
Like-
That is quite amazing.
It, it's we're a mad country, aren't we?
Oh,
We're really mad.
we are insane. The fact that it just blows my mind that it was 2000 when I was reading that. Like you said, we keep saying it. This is not an easy to sit through movie, so I get the cuts in 70 even because like it's just what happened, really, isn't it? It's what went down. But in 2000, for God's sake, like,
And like no one is watching this who isn't, aware of its history. It's like one of our episodes idea is going to be Gestapo's Last Orgy, and that's there fucking purely because it was just banned recently again. And I've not seen that film. I don't know what's in it or anything like that. But like anyone getting that is like an exploitation fan. You're not having kids in the year 2000 purchase a copy of The Last House on the West from 1973. And certainly if they do and they put in the DVD, they're turning this off in 20 minutes because of how terrible
that's
it
the
looks.
thing. I don't think this is gonna go like TikTok famous. I don't think they're gonna start doing TikTok. I don't think they're gonna start doing TikToks of Last House on the Left anytime soon. Like, it
I'm gonna be the next Mary. I'm so like her. I too like ice cream and Alice Cooper.
Oh my god. Could you imagine that?
All the kids being like, you gotta check Last House on the Left out. I mean, it's a very, very, very good film. I guess final thoughts? Oh, before final thoughts, best horror tagline ever, prove me wrong.
Oh, I don't think I can. Like,
It's just keep repeating yourself. It's only
It's
a
only
movie.
a
It's only
movie,
a
yeah.
movie. It's only a movie. That is exploitation gold, especially the way it is on the poster with the text getting larger or smaller. I guess it's brilliant. I love
that is genius. I forgot about that. I didn't know that was for this movie. I forgot it was Last House on the Left until I looked it up again. And it because that could be like anybody could use that. Like, it's so clever. It's absolute gold. Like you said.
It sticks in your head. It really does. And the trailer for Last House on the Left like repeats that at the end in this kind of monotonous
Yeah.
voice. That is how you market your exploitation film, right
Well,
there.
Wes Craven's always been a genius marketer as well, to be fair. If you think about the way he's marketed like Nightmare and Scream as well, same kind of stuff.
Wes Craven is, I don't want to say underrated, but people pass him over. People just sort of go, oh yeah, Wes Craven exists. Wes Craven is a very good filmmaker. I know he's made his fair share of rubbish, but his good stuff is excellent.
That's the thing. It did make a lot of, not to be mean, a lot of shit. But it's fantastic stuff is just the greatest. Like, literally the best.
What was that? Was it called My Soul to Take? It was like in 3D.
Oh, I remember My Soul to Take, yeah.
God. So, that's the first time I've remembered that film in a decade. But yeah, final thoughts, Dom.
Yeah, I mean, generally from where I started, it's a good film that has a lot of flaws, but you can look past so many of them for the themes that this movie creates. And if you're going to watch it and you've just listened to this and not watched it before, it is a hell of a hard watch, but get through it because it is a fantastic film and it is like it is literally extreme movie royalty. Like, it is where
Yeah.
it's the royalty of extreme movies, basically.
I think when people think of extreme cinema and extreme horror and exploitation films, this is one of the first thing that pops into most people's heads.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
I completely echo your sentiment. It is poorly directed, it is poorly edited, the tone's a mess, the writing is lacking at points. But go into this, if you want really depressing, really horrific, but go into this and watch it as this massive, massive cynical piece about America and about America in the early 70s and how terrible everything was, how terrible everyone was feeling. This film captures that in such a raw fucking way. And it is like along with Night of the Living Dead, I would say this is sort of the horror artifact of that era in a political sense.
Absolutely.
Like, this is the Living Dead level. It's not as good as Night of the Living Dead, but it is on that level in terms of politically motivated horror.
Absolutely, yeah. So,
right. Do you want to say what we're doing next week,
I would
Dom?
love to. This is in a completely different contrast to this week.
The most out there thing we've done so far.
Next week's episode will be Necromantic, and if you've never heard of that film, just wait. Just wait.
York Budgerites. Like, we want to talk about things that fucking shocked people. This shit was shocking, and this is like also a very like dirty,
grimy,
horrific film.
Yeah.
I'm excited. I haven't seen this in a while, so I'm very excited to watch it again.
And I'm excited to see it.
Right. Oh yeah, you've not
seen it once.
Oh, we're gonna have a great discussion on it. Well, thank you very much for listening. Take care, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Goodbye. You've been listening to the Extreme Cinema Podcast with Alexander Sternberg and Dom Loach. If you enjoyed this podcast, please consider subscribing, as it really helps us out. The original artwork for the podcast was done by George Arnold. The Extreme Cinema Podcast, available where all good podcasts are available.